Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carlo Perusa MMA. Today I'm with a very special guest. My guest has done a little bit of everything for mixed martial arts legend, UFC fighter. He's mixed it up on the television, doing some on-air stuff. He's done some professional wrestling. He is Mr. Frank Trigg. Frank, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are you?
Hi, man. I'm doing good, dude.
Good.
You're such a legend of the sport, and it's really cool when I talk to guys like you who grew up the time you did and fought the time you did. You guys were doing this before it was cool. You started off at during the days where people were calling this human cockfighting. It wasn't legal in every single state. A lot of people were like, it's the wild, wild west back in the day. Do you have any crazy stories of maybe first couple AMI fights, pro fights of mystery opponents fighting in bars, barns, anything?
Nope, nothing. It's funny because I get asked that all the time. I wasn't part of that era. I wasn't. I was in California. I was wrestling, in Oklahoma. Then tried to make after I finished wrestling in college, I tried to make the U.S. team for wrestling, for the world team and the Olympic team, whatever. And then got into fighting full time. And when I came to L.A., all that stuff kind of happened in Georgia and Iowa and a little bit in Texas, but I didn't have that kind of stuff when I came through. Our stuff was kind of organized. Like the one of the first events I ever fought for was Evan Tanner's uh, what was it called? USWF, I think it was down in Amarillo. I'm sorry, I can't remember. I had the belts in my room, but I can't remember what the actual name of it was. But I was organized. It had rules, had regulations. You had things you could do, things you couldn't do. Like it was all so all that early crazy stuff that just didn't happen for me because I was busy wrestling. I didn't have that. I didn't have the time to go to a bar, sit around, get drunk, and then try to fight in a bar. That wasn't what I was doing. So like I don't have any of those crazy stories. I just don't. I had one fight get canceled in Georgia. We went out, we made weight. They went to court that like we made weight at like 4 o'clock, and they were in court at like 2 o'clock. And we walked out after making weight. They were like, "Fights off. The state won't sanction it." So that's the only thing that happened. But they still made us whole. They paid for our flights, paid for hotel, gave us our per diem, and then gave us half of our show money. So um uh just to show up, how MMA cards or MMA contracts are done, you get um half the show and you get half more to win, or whatever the deal is. And they gave us a quarter of our total money just because we came there, made weight, and did our thing, and then got sent home the next day. So like when we were supposed to be fighting, I was already back in LA in my bed. So that's the craziest story I got.
When you first started getting into this, did you ever envision mixed martial arts to turn what it is to today?
Um, no, I don't think anybody did except for Dana. I mean, Dana White was the only one that believed to be like this. I mean, to be honest, when we first started, it was illegal in 48 states and the entire rest of the world. You couldn't do it anywhere, and now it's legal pretty much everywhere in the world except for I think parts of Africa and maybe Germany. Still makes it illegal. Everywhere else is pretty much legal. So it doesn't. Nobody thought it was gonna be this big, but it's also the same as thinking of talking to a boxing professional, in the 30s. Was boxing ever going to be as big as it got in the 80s? No, they never would have thought about that. It's just Dana had a vision, he had a view, and no matter what you thought about it, he didn't. He only did the positive side of it and made it happen and made it legal. He was the only one that thought it. And anybody else tells you, "Oh, I knew it was going to be that big. I knew it was going to be a big thing. I knew." They're lying. They had no idea. Nobody knew. Nobody had an idea. One guy dragged it, and we're all reaping that benefit now. Whether you're part of the UFC or part of a small organization, it doesn't matter because it's all because of that side of it, him and the Fertitas. To be quite honest, that's really who made the sport. Yes, the juggernaut is still TKO in the UFC, and there's been some companies. One has made some grounds, obviously, in catching them, but no one's going to catch the juggernaut. You just can't. You don't unless someone comes in with $100 billion and goes, look, here's $100 billion for you to run on this promotion, and we're going to get the best fighters and run the best shows, and we're going to be fluid for 10 years and not make any money because we're going to have to spend the $100 billion to catch it. Like that's the only way it's going to happen. Otherwise, it is what it is at this point in the game.
Very recently, this week, even a new promotion has emerged, GFL. You have a lot of different guys, the Wanderlei Silvas, Tyron Woodleys. I mean, the list goes on and on here. Already signed up for this. They promise a 50% revenue share between the business and the fighters. Initially, what are your thoughts on this?
It doesn't work. It's not. It's going to go bankrupt. It doesn't work. It's that formula has been tried 5 or 6 other times already in its inception. What was it called? Geez, they had team tournament. They had team captains. Miltich was one of the team captains. Boss Rutan was one of the team captains. They recruited the teams. You fought for that team. You not only fought individually, it set up more like a wrestling match where, yes, there's an individual sport. You had to fight, but then the team got points, advanced through to the finals. Everybody got paid. And that went 3 years and then went under. Like this, the format doesn't work. It just doesn't function like that. It's not, it sounds great on paper, but also look at the guys that are attached to it. What are they really doing in the sport at this point? Are they running camps? Do they already have guys that they've progressed since they retired and moved into the next stage? Like look at like a Gilbert Melendez. Gilbert has with Scrap Pack, and he has 30 or 40, and forgive me, Gilbert, if I'm wrong, and I apologize. He'll slap me next time I see him. He has like 40 professional fighters that fight, not at the top level, at all levels, right? Some at the top, majority are at the bottom, but they're fighting and they're making money. Might be a couple bucks, but they're making money. And he's progressively trying to get bigger guys. Uriah Faber's trying to get better guys. Randy Couture with Extreme Couture has been doing this since he retired. He still goes back in and tries to push the next level of guys. These guys could all very easily have their own promotions, right? Now, Gilbert does now. He's working with Scott Coker, so this might be a little offsetting with Gilbert. But most of these guys, and Uriah's got a small one with A1 because he's got Fight Pass. But if you look at the revenue and how it works, a 50-50 split between the promotion and the fighters never works, because the 50% that goes to the fighters only worry about when they're fighting and when their next fight has been announced. So that time frame of, I have just finished a fight and I have not signed for my next fight, I'm not really talking about your promotion. I'm not really talking about who you are, what you're doing, even though you've given me 50% revenue share. So that burden becomes only onto you the entire time. It's on you the entire time to make that happen, right? Which is why the boxing model works so well for boxing. In the boxing model, the majority of the money goes to the fighters on the fight, during the fight day. The promotion gets a lot less of the revenue share. But the promotion throws, whatever, call it 52 fights a year, where the fighter will only fight once or twice a year. So during the fights that they're on, they get paid very well. But the promotion gets a little bit of that money, but they get a little bit 52 times. The fighter gets a lot of it twice. So everybody makes money, and everybody works at it. And yeah, some guys complain because they want to make more money. We all complain we want to make more money, but the reality of it is that kind of format kind of works well. Right now, the UFC has the reverse, where they make most of the money and the fighters make a little bit of money, but they have so many fights and they demand so much control. In the MMA space, that formula works right now. A 50-50 split, in my personal opinion, is not going to work. It's just not going to. But believe me, they call me the ref, I'm showing up. They call me to go there and do fighters, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm not saying no, I'm not doing that stuff or it's a dumb idea. I'm just saying that from a business standpoint, that mindset just doesn't work very well.
Do you remember where you were when you got signed to the UFC?
No, no, had just stopped wrestling. There's, remember this. What was the UFC this last weekend, or what's the last pay per view?
It's like 310, 311 now.
Yeah. My first fight was UFC 45. So I don't remember where I was when I signed. I mean, I have no clue. I think I just beat Dennis Holman in WFA, maybe. I don't know. Honestly, I can't tell you. I don't know. I don't know where I was. I was in LA. I can tell you that. I was in LA living. That's all I know. At that point, I'm not sure where I was exactly. I know a lot of guys now, like, people tell you, oh yeah, I was eating dinner and my manager, and Brian Butler, my manager, called me and said, hey, here's the deal and this is what's going to happen, and you're in the UFC, kid. And I remember seeing my mom, looking at Mom, I'm in the UFC now. Like I don't have any of that, because back then the UFC also only had 8 fights a year. I mean, it wasn't even a thing at that point. It was still, you're still trying to convince people that what you're doing is not, as you said earlier, human cockfighting. What I'm not doing is something illegal. Like, a lot of people thought, even though it was sanctioned and had commissions, it was regulated, they thought we still were doing stuff illegal. So I'm telling guys to go, like, you got to be careful, man. There's cops over there. You can't, what are you talking about? It's a sport. Like, well, no, it's illegal still, right? And they didn't even know. So, like, where I was when I signed, I don't know. I don't know.
You really fought in a time that I call the golden era of mixed martial arts. A lot different than what we have now in the UFC, especially. You alluded to it. Back then, you wouldn't see as much of the product. There wouldn't be not as many fight nights. You'd have your pay-per-view kind of standard once a month. Now you're getting 40 plus dates a year with the UFC. Do you feel like that mystique, that aura, has that changed dramatically from the time you and the others fought back in the day?
Well, yeah, but it's still so. I was in San Jose this last weekend roughing, and for Scott Coker's new MMA kickboxing promotion, which was did very well. There's a second event, the first one back in May, and an event was doing very well. And Coker always finds a way to start these new programs and new. And he's actually partnered up with Gilbert Melendez, so that's why I was mentioning Gilbert earlier because I saw him this weekend. Um, I'm sorry, I forgot this question.
Has the aura and the mystique changed from your
Yeah,
day in the UFC to now?
yeah, because when there's 8 fights a year, you have time to get refreshed, do your diligence on the next fight card, look at what's going to happen. You have 30 days to kind of gear up and be like, hey, I'm really watching the fight because of this one fighter, Uriah Faber. I love him. He's an amazing fighter. I can't wait to watch him. But I'm also going to learn about the rest of the card because I have so much time in between. I was 2 weekends ago. My brother lives overseas. He texted me, hey, are you watching the fights? I'm like, what fights? Because UFC's on right now. I'm like, dude, totally forgot. I had no idea. It's so much MMA going on right now that even people in the sport forget that there's fights on the weekend because there's so many fights going on. I had no idea there was a pay-per-view going on. I had no clue because there's so much stuff going on. I'm inundated with fight stuff now, especially with at least here in America. Obviously, we all know Dana's very close with President-elect Trump. He's becoming close with Elon Musk. So now you're getting these three guys are talking about MMA as well as talking about their politics, and they're throwing everything at you all at once to the point where I just have to shut my phone off and put it down. I'm just getting inundated with. I just want to find out is I can't even think of a name right now. I'm sorry, I'm blanking because I just refed a bunch of other guys. I can't think of any big names in the UFC currently. But I'm just trying to find out when his next guy is going to fight. That's what I want to see. When is Colby Covington going to fight next? That's what I'm trying to find out. And I'm getting inundated with all this other crap that has nothing to do with MMA, nothing to do with what I'm looking for. And so it gets to the point where we're getting so much information, so much in front of our face that we can't pay attention to all of it. So we miss stuff all the time. And honestly, unless I'm roughing the event, I kind of don't really pay attention to it. But if I'm home and one of my friends hits me up and goes, hey, there's a fight night this weekend, there's a pay-per-view this weekend. Are you going to watch the fight? I'm like, oh, yeah, everyone's coming over to the house. And I tell my wife, hey, we're having a party again, having a fight party. Everyone's coming over to the house. My wife's the timekeeper for California as well. So we're fight oriented. Our family is very fight oriented. So you have to understand what I'm telling you. If we're not at fights, we're watching fights. If we're not working a fight, we're looking at a fight. If we're not looking at a fight, working a fight, I'm on the phone with McCarthy. I'm on the phone with Andy Foster. I'm on the phone with Mike Beltran. I'm on the phone with Jason Herzog talking about fights. And I don't know when all the fights are going off. I can't tell you what's happening with everything. And this is what we do in my household. So if I'm in that space, like half the time, to be quite honest, I have to call my eldest son and be like, hey, what fight am I watching this weekend? Like because there's three or four on a Saturday. Which one am I going to watch? I don't have time to watch all of them. I can't just sit down all day Saturday watching fights. I have to pick and choose which I'm going to watch, and he'll tell me the fight card I'm going to watch because that's the better fight card for what we're looking for what we're trying to see. So it's the mystique of it has been lost because when we first started, it was 8 fights a year. Now there's 52 fights with one promotion. So honestly, if you add in LFA, Lights Out, UFC, Bellator, which is now Bellator slash PFL, so it's one ish whatever, and then WWC. You look at you know with just in California, right? We had 5 events this weekend on Saturday, and Cage Warriors was on Friday. So 6 fights in California. Well, I can't watch them all, man. That's one state. Now add in 49 other states, add in the territories, add in the world. Now you're like I can't, man. It's so the mystique is gone because it's not Formula One anymore. It used to be Formula One. You couldn't wait for the fight to happen. You want to see what's going to go on. You want to see now. You're kind of just like, okay, whatever. That's great. Whatever. I saw the highlights. Maybe watch the fight. I saw the highlights of Kobe losing this weekend. I can't remember his opponent's name, but I do know I will watch all of his fights going forward because the way, not the fact he beat Kobe has nothing to do with it. The way he beat him makes me want to watch him. But now he's going to get lost in that shuffle of the other 52 fights of the year. Like I've lost him now. And it's like, okay, I'll catch him again at some point, and I'll be a fan of his, but I'm like, I'm not really going to be paying attention, And a lot of the people that grew up in my era, watching my era, have now or like I can only watch 3 or 4 times a year because I'm only following 5 or 6 people. And that's all they do. They just follow 6 people. They don't listen or talk to anybody else because it's so, like I said, so much information. There's so many things going off that the mystique is kind of lost. But from a business standpoint, MMA is doing very well. It's doing very well.
Now, I think another thing that we've seen change through the years is personality and entertainment. I think Chael Sonnen was one of those first guys or actually Tito Ortiz, I think was one of those first guys to really use his personality. Chael took it to a next level. McGregor comes around, goes crazy with it. Now, guys are playing on the facade. They're being straight up characters that they're not because they know they're going to get title shots. They're going to make more money. They're going to get to that belt a lot quicker. How has personality impacted mixed martial arts?
Well, who was the first heel in the UFC?
I mean, I would say it's Tito.
Tank Abbott.
Oh, Tank Abbott, yes, yeah.
Who was the second heel in the UFC?
Ken Shamrock.
Frank Trigg.
Frank Trigg. There you go, right
So
here.
the reality of it is the heel makes more money than the face. That's from pro wrestling. It's always been that way. Muhammad Ali learned it very early, and I'm a very big proponent of Muhammad Ali. So I really paid attention to his biography, looked at all his fights. Like back then, there wasn't TV and the internet. This is pre-internet stuff. This is me looking at stuff from a book, having to pick up a book in the library and read it, and having to learn about these people. And they taught me very early that the bad guy tends to make more money. Tito, obviously, because he won more than I did, he got into the title fights and won title fights. He had a bigger stature for it. But he really wasn't that big of a trash talker. He really wasn't that big of a heel. He kind of pushed the butts a little bit. When him and Dana got into it, he kind of was a bit of it, but it was only him and Dana versus not him and his opponents. I had Hughes, who was a complete face. He's a nice guy. We have 8 fights a year. I got to get on the main event. I got to get title fights. I got to do something. Heel. Chael Sonnen reinvented the damn game. He changed it completely. I mean, calling out Anderson Silva, telling him he's going to go to Brazil and slap his wife. Are you nuts? Man, are you crazy? It worked. And talk to him today. He's never lost. Still never lost. Never lost. Like, all right. And I will talk to newbie fans. Like, yeah, Chael Sonnen. Why are we talking about Khabib being the best? Chael Sonnen's the best. He's never defeated. He never lost. I was like, holy crap! Really? You really believe he never lost? Look at the record, man. Like, just look. But he's that good at it. Then bringing Conor McGregor, dude, that guy gives me goosebumps when he talks. It's the shit he talks. Wow. I mean, dude, it makes me mad. I'm not even in the fight. I'm not even a part of it. Chael's made me giggle. Like his stuff, that's funny. That's funny. Oh, that was good. That's a good liner. That's a good liner. When Conor talks, he makes people that have nothing to do with what's going on have an emotional response. He makes you want to be involved. That's a whole new level, man. And that's why everybody is chasing that. Don't let him fool you. Don't let him lie to you. Everybody wants to be Conor McGregor right now. Everybody does. Because there are guys. I'm on set when I'm shooting a movie, and I'll be in Italy shooting a movie. I'll be in Texas shooting a movie, and some grip or some AD or some PA will come up with the walk. You're like, what are you doing? No, man, I just told this guy whatever, blah blah, and I'm like, everybody does the Conor. Everybody does. It became a thing because of how he does 3 things very well. There's a lot of stuff Conor does very bad, and you want to find out what that is, just Google search. Look on, you'll see it. He does a lot of stuff very bad. right? But the three things he did very well when it comes to MMA, he talked enough to get under your skin to make you mad and make you be emotional when you fought him, which takes you out of your calmness and serenity that you have to be a professional fighter. If you're fighting from an emotional standpoint, you pretty much can get your ass kicked how Conor showed you, right? So he gets under your skin. He also wins the fights when he needs to win the fights, and when he loses, he doesn't lose humbly, but he loses in a way that makes you respect the way that he lost. And the third thing he does is that every time you fight him, you get paid. Every time. So now he's got people lining up down the street to come fight him. He's got his pick. What's the best fight for me to make the most amount of money? I'll make that guy more money he's ever made before, because that's just how, this is what I do. Red Panty Night became a real thing because everybody was getting paid. It was like you sign that dotted line, your wife is happy as hell because you're fighting Conor. Win, lose, or draw, you're getting paid. Doesn't matter. Okay? So Conor has changed the game to what people wanted to watch, and he brought a whole new era of people in. But now he's gone. He's out. So we're still talking about him, which means he's been that good because we're still talking about him. Was it 3 or 4 years later? He hasn't really done much, right? He hasn't won, but we're still talking about him. We're doing this interview. We're still talking about him because he elevated the game to the next level. He is the responsibility. Tito, get back to Tito, elevated our monetary value because he realized what the money was coming in. So he held out for a bigger contract. And when he got paid more, everybody got paid more, right? The top end got paid more. The bottom end got paid more. We all made more money. He made a lot more money. We made a little bit more money, but we all got paid more because he held out. Conor elevated the game where we all could get paid more because so many more eyeballs came out of the sport. So many more people wanted to see the sport. When you have guys like Agassi, Messi, going to fights to watch him compete, you're talking about Damon, Affleck. These guys are going to fights to watch Conor compete. That changes the elevation of the game. So is the mystique lost a little bit now because there's so many shows? Yes. But the trash talk, the game that Conor brought to it, has made more eyeballs come in, but we don't have that next person anymore. A lot of people have tried. They try to do it. They don't have the skill set, either verbally, mentally, or physically, to catch what Conor did. Connor's kind of a Lewis Hamilton, to be honest, of our sport. He kind of really is, where it doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't have worked. There's no reason why Conor's mystique should have worked when you saw him fighting at Cage Warriors, getting knocked out, getting beat. How is he going to be this guy now to put everything together to be that athletic, that dedicated, trying to be a better sportsmanship, having the wherewithal, the wit, and the ability to talk the way he talks, to sell it, to show it, and then win it is something that's very hard to match. So the people try to do that since then, but you can't do it. Now we're in an era of we have so many fights going on, no one can stand out. There's not going to be that standout guy anymore. And because you don't have that standout guy, it's become very difficult to really understand what's happening linear behind the game, right? But dude, those guys of Chael and Conor still. I mean, hell, wasn't Chael at this last weekend or something in Florida?
Locked out Kobe.
Oh, he walked out Kobe, right? He walked out Kobe, right? For what? For what damn reason? Somebody put a header up. Kobe can't afford corner guys. So he had to bring out the Hulk and Chael. Well, it was an experiment to see what happened. Kobe's another guy. He's trying to be a Conor. He's trying to use that wit and that mainstay. Well, it didn't work. That experiment failed. But somebody else is going to try it this next weekend because it has worked in the past, and now everybody has the ability to make more money because of Conor.
In addition to mixed martial arts, you've also explored the world of professional wrestling. You were part of TNA.
Mhm.
Obviously, I honestly, growing up wrestling fan, I think TNA did not get the credit it deserved back then. They're doing the six-side ring. The product was unbelievable. You were working with Prime, Kurt Angle, you had AJ Styles. What was it like working in that organization?
Man, it was kind of surreal because it was just Kurt just called and asked if I wanted to commentate the MMA fight between him and Samoa Joe. And Samoa Joe used to work out in our gym at the Raw gym when we had it in LA. Him and John Cena. So I knew those guys when they were, Samoa Joe was always Samoa Joe, but Cena was the prototype or the prodigy or
Yeah,
something before he became.
prototype.
And it was just watch these guys do their work inside of our gym, inside the cage. It was incredible. With Rick Bassman was UPW was training it then. And it was incredible watching these guys when I was just a little, 2001, 2002, 2003, just watching that happen. And of course, growing up as a 80s kid, watching WWE in the 80s, like, dude, that was our thing. Like literally yelling at the TV because the referee wouldn't turn around because he's so busy yelling with the corner that the guy is cheating the guy. I mean, we're all into it. Like we really thought it was real back then. Like we really did with kids. So we thought it was real. Then all of a sudden, I'm in a room with Kurt Angle, Booker T, and Sting, and Chris Daniels. And I am losing my absolute mind. Losing it. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? And they're like, hey, do you want to go outside and take some bumps? I'm like, of course I do. Why wouldn't I? I'm gonna have Kurt Angle give me a bump. Of course, I'm taking it, man. I don't care if he breaks my neck. I'm taking it. And then all of a sudden, I'm with Scott D'Amore and I'm training. Hold on, what's happening? How how'd I get here? By accident, totally by accident, man. It was great. I love being with TNA. I really did love being with TNA. It was just a weird time. I was still fighting. I hadn't made my full transition into film and TV yet, so I was still trying to fight at the same time while doing these. And a couple of the matches they needed me for that they had written. I think it was Vince Russo. Vince Russo had written some stuff, and he needed there were certain things that had to happen that he needed me for on these certain dates, and I couldn't do the dates because I had to be in a training camp to get ready for a fight. I wasn't doing a work. I'm doing a real thing. I'm doing something real now, so I gotta figure this thing out. And they kind of got mad that I had to do these things, right? And I didn't know that was how it was done because no one explained to me. I didn't come into pro wrestling at the bottom and have to work my way up to the top. So I learned all the nuances, all the language, all the terminologies of stuff, how things work inside the ring, how things are communicated. Like I didn't understand any of that. I had to learn it on the fly. And so a lot of these people have these 20, 30-year reigns of learning how to do stuff. And I didn't have that. And so I didn't understand that when you say, hey, I can't do it on these dates, but they've written these things for these dates, that I should have just sucked it up and shown up and trained around it. I was like, no, I'm not going. I'm just not doing it. I got this other thing going on. And it unraveled and the barrel rolled. They just stopped calling. I was never released. I just never was called again, to go back to TNA. So, but it was, man, I love being in that cage, in that ring with those guys. I love being over there. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun.
So there's a story that's a revolving youth that you probably get asked about much. An elevator ride with Bruce Buffer from maybe back in the day. Is that something that still comes up to this day?
It's the third time today I'm talking about it. And you want to know anything about it? Read the book or watch the whatever thing they got on TV, whatever. I guess there's something on YouTube or something.
All right. In this day and age, mixed martial arts obviously something that is so big, it's so widespread. You get to, kind of pay back in a way. You get to work as a ref. You now found a love in refing all these different promotions, in the West Coast. How much do you enjoy doing that?
So it's weird. I started because I was worried about fighter safety. I was going to come in and start changing the fight game. There's a lot of refs in Nevada and a few in Central California back at that time. We're talking 15 years ago. That we're going to get somebody killed. Honestly, we're going to get somebody killed. And I was really worried. And I opened up my mouth, and McCarthy said, "Go ahead and come take my class." And I was like, "Fool, I'm gonna bust your class out. Dude, I'm not gonna I'm passing your class, dude. I know all the rules and all the regulations. Like I'm the guy." Got smashed up, man. I failed this course twice. It was horrible, miserable. After I finally passed the course, took his course twice, failed it twice, took privates with him for 6 weeks, finally passed it, started getting assignments, and realized things were already being laid in place for fighter safety. So what I thought was what I was coming in for was already being worked on, was already being fixed. So I had to kind of revamp myself and think about what do I really want to do here? Why am I in this space? Because the thing that I wanted to do, I want to be there to save my friends from getting hurt or save my friends from hurting somebody else to the point where they have to think about it later. You don't ever want to be the guy that gets really hurt inside that cage. You don't ever want to be the guy that gets really, really hurt, right? But you also don't want to be the guy that actually did the real hurting. It's bad on both sides, right? Sometimes you have to go a little bit further than you want to go to make sure you win the fight. So I was getting in there to do those things. Well, those things are already being taken care of. They're already being fixed. So what was I really doing in there? And I realized, yes, I'm a wrestler, but I'm a traditional martial artist at heart. That's really how it is. You have to have respect and counsel for everything that you've done. MMA gave me a name. MMA gave me whatever my popularity is, positive or negative, whatever goodness or badness is out in my heart. Majority of my adult career has been because of I wrestled at the University of Oklahoma. I tried to make it onto a U.S. team, and I fought MMA. So the best way for me to give back to wrestling and/or MMA was to be an MMA referee and a judge. For me to give back to the sport as you're supposed to in a traditional martial art, once you become a black belt, your job is to train the next generation of black belts. My job is to protect the next generation of fighters. That's my job right now, is to make sure to give back to that sport that made me who I am. Right? Don't The reason why I'm able to get so many things stunt wise and acting wise and fight coordinating wise and stunt coordinating wise, a lot of it is because the producers and the finance guys look at the names that come across their sheet. They're like, Frank Trigg, I know that name. I know that name from someplace. And they go to IMDb and they look at my name, they look up the stuff, and they get about halfway down. They go, oh, UFC Hall of Fame. Oh, that's that Frank Trigg. We got to at least bring him in for the meeting. He's not getting the damn job. We got to bring him in for the meeting because I want to see him. And then all of a sudden, I'm in the running for the top three. I'm in top two for the job. You're like, well, because of MMA, brought me into that space. So I have to get back. It's a disservice to me. Khabib retired from the sport, walked away from the sport, and has not left the sport. You're like, what's he? When he stopped fighting, he already was training the next generation of guys and getting them ready, and is still training the next generation of guys and getting them ready. He knew from a traditional standpoint, you must give back. All the traditional martial arts, you'll see in MMA, once they're not done with the sport. They're done competing, but they are giving back to the sport in whatever aspect they can. Now, not all of them are going to own gyms. Not all of them are going to be coaches. Some of us have to do other things. Chris Lieben, refs, MMA, and boxing this last weekend. He had his first boxing this last weekend. Good job on Chris here in California. So he refs. And for as good as he is an MMA ref, he's a much better and amazing MMA judge. He's an incredible MMA judge. And he still owns his own school, and he still trains jiu-jitsu. And he's still talking about maybe going back and competing again in jiu-jitsu. So this is a guy that fought, my generation fought, and is giving back more than anybody else can think about in the sport, right? To train the next gen. I talked about him earlier, Ryan and Gilbert and these guys. They all got out, and they're all trying to make sure they get back to the sport. And this is just my very small way to get back to the sport, is by being involved as a referee. And that's just kind of what I have to do for right now. And I've only got really, I know I was talking to Andy Frost today about it. I maybe have like 5 or 6 years left reffing, and I've got to stop. I mean, you can't ref MMA forever. You can judge a little bit longer than you can ref because you sit in a seat. But trying to get down there, trying to break guys apart, trying to push them off, like, you age out. So I've got to use these years now to really work as a ref as much as I can when I'm available. But the other problem is that I'm getting really, really big in the stunt world as far as work wise. So quite a bit of the time I'm gone, and it's becoming a little bit of problematic because I get an event and then I gotta bail on it because I make so much. Obviously, film and TV, I make more money than reffing. That's just how it works. So I got to pick and choose where I want my financing to come from, and usually it's film and TV. So
Awesome. Well, Frank, hey man, thank you so much for sitting with me this afternoon and talking about your
got
career.
it.
It's an absolute honor to talk to you, and I appreciate everything you've done for the sport. If it wasn't for guys like you, there would be no UFC today, man. So really appreciate it.
Thanks, bro. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for us today. That is Mr. Frank Trigg, Carla Prusa. Stick around, fight fans.